So thank you. I want to join Jan for a few moments just in welcoming all of you to this 8th annual CPTR workshop. As Jan mentioned, we realize and really do appreciate the investment that you're making in this collaboration by spending 2, 3, 4 days of your time with us. And for many of you, I've seen you do that for the last 8 years, and so we are really grateful. When CPTR was launched in 2010, our leadership group, so TB Alliance, Critical Path, Gates Foundation, really did fundamentally believe these face-to-face time every year was critically important. Understanding that is a huge investment in time and resource. And we believe that is still the case today. I will say that when you are able to see our final printed programs, we have a very robust 4 days planned for you. A lot of the collaborations, a lot of the project work that you're going to be hearing about were actually ideas that came about through each of you talking to one another at this conference. And in fact, the meta-analysis program that Jan just mentioned, which we call TB Reflect, a partnership with CPTR and WHO, really was born of conversations that began 2 years ago at this meeting. Last year at this meeting, sitting on a couch before our reception one evening, we started to talk about a new biomarker program that has recently gone forward and met a couple of hurdles, and you'll hear more about that from Larry Geider and Atsuka later in our program. This is also our biggest opportunity every year to talk to you directly about the progress that we've made against some of these projects that were just, a glimmer in our eye 8 years ago. And so it's important for us to report to all of you, our participants and stakeholders, what we've done there. But before we move into this very lengthy and robust program, the TB Alliance, Critical Path Institute, think it's really important that we pause for a moment and provide our acknowledgement and our great appreciation to the individual who championed Critical Path to TB Drug Regimens initiative, and that is Jan Gheuens. So very long overdue. As you all know, and as you just heard, CPTR was born really of his vision. And I think that started much more than 8 or 9 years ago, because I can imagine it took a little bit of time to convince some of the folks in this room, as well as folks outside this room, that this was a really good idea. The idea really was that we needed a truly collaborative environment of stakeholders across diverse groups that had diverse ways of thinking about these TB methods and regimen development, and really tried to get us all together to have the important conversation. So Mel, Martha, I'd like to ask you both to come up. They'd like to say a few words as well, and then we're going to honor you with a gift.
Deborah, thank you very much. So let me just start out by saying there is one person in the world, and only one, without whom this would not exist. And if that one person hadn't been here, and it's the only one in the world, this meeting wouldn't be happening, and we wouldn't have made the progress that we made over the last 8 years or so. And I know you won't believe this, but that person is Jan. It's really been phenomenal having really the privilege of working with Jan over the full length of this time, seeing how he's really guided the ship and really taken us from where we were, which was, this was a fringe element, frankly, of really an oddball thinking at the, when we first started, of how to work on TB drugs and TB regimens. And I think now it really is much more mainstream than the conventional thinking 8 or 9 years ago. And I've got to tell you, without mentioning names, it really sort of warms my heart when I go to meetings now. And frankly, people who, I know back 8 or 9 years ago were telling Jan he's crazy and this is really ridiculous. It's their ideas now that to do regimen development and to do the things that are being done. And I think that's always a sign of unbelievable success is when the doubters become the champions. And that's what Jan has done. So Jan, Certainly on a professional level, you know, you've been an unbelievable help with CPTR and super critical, but also on a personal level, it's just been fantastic having the opportunity to work closely over the years. So, thank you.
When I first talked to Ray Woosley about joining CPATH in January 2010, the first thing out of his mouth was, we're doing this fabulous program with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and TB. So it was such an important program for CPATH, and I think it's one that's been closest to my heart through the years as I've been involved with CPATH. I've been very fortunate to participate in this program since it was first announced, at least, by Dr. Hamburg in 2010. And I know Jan doesn't like to be kind of recognized like this, so I'm going to be short. But I do want to just acknowledge that I have learned so much from this man, because he has, throughout the entire 8-9 years of this program, he has been consistent in telling us what we're here to do. The clarity of mission that we have had in this program, we have really worked hard to prevent scope creep. And that's been a great lesson to me as a leader of a nonprofit, because scope creep can be the death knell of any program. And I think we've been very successful at avoiding that. But I think even more is the passion that he brings to his care about the impact that TB has on people around the world, and that we need to do something different. And the last thing I want to acknowledge is just the leadership that Jan has shown. He's one of the strongest leaders, gentle but very firm, and has kept us on the straight and narrow, and has really demonstrated, you know, how we can make a difference, a positive difference in the world. So with that, I would just like to say thank you to Jan for all that you've done, and you have created an amazing legacy, and we will all keep carrying on this torch and make sure that we continue to deliver tools that are going to help us get medicines to folks that are suffering with TB. So thank you, Jan.
So Jan, honestly, sincere thanks from Martha Mel, myself, and the folks in the room for your leadership.
Well, thank you, very much. I'm not used to having this kind of recognition, but I really appreciate it. And it just brings to mind one anecdote of the very, very early days when I was kind of shopping around the idea with experts and all of that. And one of these was a regulatory expert, who shall remain nameless, who literally laughed me out of the room, who thought it was like the craziest thing you've ever heard. It was not like chuckling. It was like, I'm not going to try to imitate it. But those were the days. And second thing, I really appreciate the recognition, but of course, CPTR and all drug R&D, it's a team sport. It's not an individual who can do all these things and sort of based on sheer force of personality drive things through. It truly, honestly is a team sport, and in that sense, I think this is also your recognition. Thank you.